All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock a.m. on the East Coast, and glad to have you with us for another edition of Elevating You. And it is all about reaching your peak. These are inspiring, hopefully inspiring, career growth conversations. I'm Kraig, Kann, Mike Mooney alongside, and Mike and I have been hanging out together this is about a month in. This is number 4.
Yeah.
So if you've watched any of the others, thanks so much for that. And each week it's a new conversation topic, and we're going to get to the topic for this week here in just a second. But Mike, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. It's great to see you. I know we had sort of last week was a bye week. I missed you, man. I missed you.
Yeah.
Things are good. Just trying to keep up. It seems like things are opening up and people are getting out, and there's a little bit of routine and normalcy maybe coming back. But man, it's just great to be back with you here.
Yeah, really good, really good. And so, just to give everybody a little bit of an understanding of what we've tried to do. Look, I don't think either of us believes that we're the be all end all for career advice. And that's not what this is supposed to be. This is actually kind of career conversation, job conversation.
Yeah.
We're in an interesting time right now. And, we felt like, hey, let's put it out there. Let's have some dialogue and let's chat about it. And so we created Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak, for everybody to be able to ask questions and us to just talk about some stuff. I mean, look, if we could do this as a Zoom conversation and have 150 people in here, we'd do that. But we felt like it was an opportunity for Mike and I to just kind of go back and forth and let people know, what we think about certain things. Quick 30-second bio for me, if you're just joining. 25 years in television, 5.5 as the chief communications officer at the LPGA, and then running my own business. And it's Kann Advisory Group. More on that in just a little bit, but traveling the country, leadership communication, workshops, keynote speaking, and webinars for corporations, groups, individuals to help them understand the importance of presenting the best you. So all designed with communication, and also SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio each and every week. Mike, you can give them 30 seconds on your bio and we will move on.
I'd like you to give my 30 seconds, man. This is fantastic. So, hey, good morning, everyone. Mike Mooney here. Spent the last 25 years in the world of motorsports, the high pressure, high performance world, and highly unpredictable world as well, in the areas of brand strategy, marketing, communications, reputation management, and crisis management. Had the opportunity to do that for race teams, Roush Fenway Racing, as well as brands, agencies, leagues, amazing opportunities. But it brought me to a place where I really wanted to move forward and pivot in my career to help people learn how to and know where, how, and when to shift in their life as it relates to reputation, brand, leadership, in order to just open up doors of opportunity. So I do that now through coaching, consulting, speaking, workshops, much like Kraig, travel the country, but it's all about connecting with people to help them be more, see more, stand up, be distinctive, and really just maximize what's there in their lives.
Yeah, well said. And that kind of segues into the last time we got together, and we've had a different topic each and every time. And last time we joined everybody, the topic was career transitions, and you just talked about pivots, and that's kind of what we were talking about, jumping into the uncomfortable. Now, we have actually, with our topics, done something where we invite people to give us questions, and they can post those questions via the Kann Advisory Group Facebook, or they could do it on your Facebook, mine, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, because we post this stuff in a lot of different places, and they can also email them. But I've got 2 questions that came in last week, Mike, so we're going to take a crack at both of those here real quick. So on the topic of career transitions, Steve in Mississippi asked this: how long is too long in a job? How long is too long in a job? I think that's real interesting.
Wow.
So I'll let you go first, and then I'll fire my answer at you.
Okay, great. Okay, so how long is too long? I would say the days that you walk in and you're no longer challenged and excited by what it is that you're doing. And what I mean by that is there are times when we are we're grinding. You're on the hamster wheel and you're tired, and maybe you're not excited or you're not inspired just because of the pure pace of the work and what you're trying to keep up with. What I'm talking about is when you walk in that office or you walk into wherever it is that you're planting your behind in for the next 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, and you're not inspired or challenged by the work, by what you get to do, it doesn't excite you. You get to a place where, and I'll tell you from my personal experience, I felt to an extent, look, I can do all this, but I feel like I'm sleepwalking. I'm not truly alive in it. I think that's when you realize you're too long, and then you've got to think about what that pivot could be.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good way to put it. Steve, here's my take on that. And I've said this to many people. There was a point in my career in television where I started asking myself, am I just making another show? Like we would do 3 a day, and you'd come in the morning, prep for the first one at 12:30, then you're back on the air at 2:30, getting ready for the golf coverage at 3, and then you're wrapping it up at 6. Am I just doing another show, making another show, or am I truly making a difference? Now, I felt like I was making a difference. I felt like I represented the organization well. I felt like I represented golf well, narrating stories and promoting the brand, et cetera, talking about golf. But at the same time, I started wondering if it was the only thing I could do. You would walk through airports, and I was always blessed and humbled that people go, oh, hey, Golf Channel guy. All right, that's great. I love that. Trust me, I'm like so, respectful of that and appreciative of that. But I wanted to be able to be known for something else. And so I started challenging myself. And so my answer simply to that question, Steve, how long is too long in a job? It may be never. It may be you love that career and you're continuing to get promoted along the way. And that's fantastic. And that happened for me as well. But to me, it's when you feel like you're no longer challenged. When you wake up after you've been out partying, remember the days, and you're kind of a bit hungover and you just don't feel like you're yourself. And then I equate that to I'm driving into work and am I really excited to get there, or am I just going to do another day? And to me, that's when you don't necessarily leave a career or a job, but you put yourself out there and you start thinking about what the next might be. So that's my answer. One more from last week, and this is Michelle in New York. You said a career transition is about jumping into the uncomfortable. How do you solve that? How do you solve that? How do you win? I guess is the question, win when you're jumping into something uncomfortable. Now, here's my quick take on that. And I was uncomfortable when I left to be the chief communications officer. That was a whole new role for me. Suddenly I'm not in front of a camera, managing people, and I'm in board meetings and I'm doing a lot of different things that I had to learn and try to figure out and understand. And you're learning from other people who've been in it for a lot longer than you, so you have to open yourself up to that. What can I take from everybody else and then help make myself better, and then share my unique skill set to help make the team better. But my advice would be to find a project within the organization. If there's something you can jump into where you can use your skill set early on, or it may be a group meeting or a group project or something where you can get involved and show yourself. So in other words, you're not on an island, you're with a collective group, and everybody starts to see you shine a little bit, and you're making friends along the way. That helps ease the uncomfortable, as opposed to just sitting in your cubicle or at your desk or in your office, kind of, I don't want to say twiddling your thumbs, but waiting for that opportunity. So that's what I would say. Find a project, find a group that you can get involved in as fast as possible. Yeah. Your take?
I love it. And it's a great question, because I think for Kraig, personally, for where you and I have been, being uncomfortable is a daily state, a daily occurrence. Yeah. And I believe that truly, and I'm going to take more of a philosophical approach to this, is that we need to embrace being uncomfortable, because that's truly where the growth is with all of us in our lives, in our personal lives, our professional lives. I know when, for many years in motorsports, I was purely on the communication side. I was the PR guy. And I got to a point in my career where I was like, you know what, there's a whole other other side of this, and there's a marketing and strategy, and then the people who negotiate the deals. And I wanted to learn that side of the business. And I had an opportunity to do it at a great agency. And I was working with brands like Sunoco and Tylenol and Walmart, but it scared the hell out of me because I was used to being the guy telling the story. Now I've got to negotiate deals and put strategy together. And it was really uncomfortable. But to your point, you find the people, you find the tribe. And I think it's the perspective of saying, this is going to be uncomfortable. Man, I'm alive. Man, I'm doing something different. Man, I'm learning. And that, I believe, when you keep doing that and pushing forward, it strengthens that muscle to recognize the power and the gift of being uncomfortable. And I believe it is a gift. And the other thing I would mention, man, from our side of things, and if people are jumping out into the uncomfortable, so we're talking about being uncomfortable in a current job, but when you're pivoting and jumping out and you're uncomfortable, my recommendation is find people to connect with. Find others that are in a similar place or 5-10 years ahead of you that you can tap into. Kraig, that's when you and I met, right? Yeah. When you were a couple of years ahead on your pivot, I was making mine, and man, we spoke into each other, we lifted each other up, we guided each other. So that's my encouragement there. If you're already in your pivot, find others and don't isolate yourself when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah, other people give you a lot of confidence. They give you a lot of strength at times, and just engage, just connect. We always talk about networking and stuff, but networking to me is not just networking outside, in the industry, finding other people at other corporations or jobs or whatever. Networking is also something that can take place within your own building. Walk the building. Go spend some time with people, get to know them, let them get to know you. I think that's really, really important. And it can, a lot of times if you're uncomfortable and if you're kind of strong enough to lean into that a bit of anxiety and go up to somebody else, they have a whole new, respect and understanding for you, which I think is really important, and it will help ease that. Okay, so career transitions was our topic the last go around, and now let's move into today. And today is a topic and a conversation called finding your purpose, which is something that we wanted to discuss, and not just in your current job, but also within your career. So I think that's Mike and I. Here's how we come up with these. By the way, we sit down and Mike sends me a few, and I send him a few, and then we decide, hey, yeah, that's a good one. And we try to find topics that, that we can relate to, but that relate to us, that something that we were trying to find. And, if you heard, here's a shameless plug. If you heard Mike on my podcast, Tracks to Success, which is a great episode, download it on Apple podcasts or wherever you find your podcast, you'll hear Mike talk about this exact thing, because it's one of the things that Mike was trying to figure out back when he was, in his days with NASCAR and trying to find out that true purpose. So, I try to come up with some thoughts that we can kind of kick this off with. And there you see where you can ask us questions about this, folks. You can put them there live on the Kann Advisory Facebook page, or you can email them and we'll get them at info@kannadvisory.com. And then next week we'll answer the questions like Steve and Michelle. But to me, when it comes to finding your purpose, Mike, and then I'll let you go here, not leave, but talk. Work to add some personal and professional value to others. To me, that's the greatest thing about purpose, is giving people something worth following. So whatever you do within your own career / industry, I believe if you want people to follow your lead, regardless of whether you're a leader or not, when it comes to being purposeful, you've got to do things that are worth following. You've got to be somebody who's worth engaging with, somebody who you want to be on your team. So finding your purpose to me is a lot of different things. It's like finding your voice. What is your message? What do you stand for? What do you want to bring to the table? What are your greatest strengths? And it's a simple thing. You can kind of create your own line, if you will, of pros and cons. How many times do we do that, right? Here's the good things about what I'm doing. Here's the things that make me a little edgy. And if you do that, and you do it in strengths and perhaps weaknesses, you might act, because we all have weaknesses. That's why we hire people to fill in our gaps and make us better and make our teams better. But if you can find your strengths and the things that make you, unique, special, whatever. I think that's the first step to finding out your real purpose. And then remind me after you go to share a story that I heard about job interview and first day on the job. So, or annual review, and I'll share that. Go ahead, Mike. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. It really is about, we hear the phrase, what do you bring to the table? And that always kind of cracked me up, because when I was younger, I honestly, and I'll speak to someone, if we have some recent graduates out there or people that are early in their careers, maybe you don't know yet.
Yeah.
Maybe you just don't know. And that, I can speak to it from that perspective for the first part of this, Kraig, is, man, I'll tell you what, and I brought this with me because of the conversation, so I hope you don't mind, but this was my first job out of college. I was the assistant footwear manager at a Kmart, right? This is literally like my name tag. I kept this with me all these years, just as a reminder of where I started, but also I think important for this conversation is that when I was wearing this tag, man, I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't. And that was okay. Looking back on it, it's okay. I know I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to find that early on. What is my voice? What do I stand for? What do I bring to the table? Right. And, I came to a couple of conclusions on that, man. And one of them is that sometimes the purpose finds you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You have to be patient in that process and really being curious during that time. Give yourself that grace to realize that the answer is not going to be right there in front of you all the time, or looking back at you in the mirror. It comes through the experiences you have. I mean, I can tell you that as I look at my career trajectory from starting in communications and storytelling, and then developing marketing campaigns, and then working directly with athletes and executives to shape their brands and help them bring their stories life, help build their reputations. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say that those were breadcrumbs as I look back to me finding what my purpose is now, and that I've recognized and, more importantly, embraced in my career and my life. So I would say for folks who are trying to figure this out now, where is that purpose specifically in the workplace? I love your pros and cons list. I think we need to, and we have the perfect time during this great pause and still are sort of in it to take inventory in the places that we are drawn to, the things that we just do naturally, the things that we're in our flow with. If it's communicating, if it's numbers, if it's problem solving, right? And figuring out then, okay, now, how do I bring that to the table in a way, like you said, I love it, to bring purpose and value to others around me, on my team, in my life, my family, the relationships that I'm nurturing. I think this is a really important conversation, Kraig, that we're bringing forth, and I'm glad that we're doing it. Although we don't have the answers, but the conversation, I think, sparks ideas with people. Yeah, a lot of folks now are really questioning purpose. What is it that I'm doing in this role?
Yeah. So you brought your Kmart thing. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but there it is.
I can. Okay. I love it.
So that's the launch day medal that we got. Like this little token for the Golf Channel way back in the day, January 17, 1995. So I will say this about that photo. It's funny that you brought your Kmart thing and I bring the other. Here's where I go with that. When I was younger in my career, I felt like every business card that I got and every next job I got was defining my success or who I was or what my purpose was. In other words, when I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the early 6 people on the Golf Central studio team or Golf Channel team, I thought that was what I was destined for. That was me. That was what I was all about. That was the big thing, et cetera. And so I was very protective of the brand of the Golf Channel and wanted to represent it well and all that. It took me a while. Kids help that, right? Life balances and so forth, to really figure out that my purpose isn't being a host or an anchor or whatever. My purpose is to do good for the people that are around you. In other words, representing the other people who might have been sitting to my right or to my left, and making them better somehow, adding value to them to be better for the collective group on the show or whatever we were doing. And as I moved along, you start to think of, okay, all the things that I've been doing, what is that really for? And I started to figure it out. And to me, your purpose becomes what other people believe is the best thing you add to the team, not necessarily what you believe the best thing that you add to the team. Now, so I want to share that story I was talking about. I was once told that, look, we get hired for a job, and then every year you go in for a review, and they say what things you've done well or what things you can improve on and so forth. Every year you should ask your boss, why did you hire me? What was the reason that you brought me to this team? And it will always bring you back to your center of what your greatest strengths are. Because if a leader is really doing their job and they're hiring people to be on their team, they're hiring different pieces to the puzzle. It's no different than a coach, on a football team or a baseball team or whatever. I got to have the best second baseman. I need a utility player, though. I got to have my relief pitcher. I got to have my starting pitchers, et cetera. And everybody brings a little something different. They don't bat a lineup with, 8 right-handed batters. You got to mix it up and bring other people's skill sets. Some are faster, some are long ball hitters, some are, singles and doubles hitters, et cetera. So if you ask that every year, why did you hire me? What value do I bring? It will help you to understand what your greatest strengths are. From that, you can then go, all right, that's my greatest value that I bring. Now, where else can I improve? What other things can I find? Where can I get better in some other things? And I think that's really important when it comes to finding out what your purpose is. And you want to be, you talk about this a lot. You want to be purposeful. You want to have your game plan. I got a buddy of mine who's a very high executive with Google, and he always tells me, Kraig, in your business, Kann Advisory, make sure you don't spread yourself too wide. Keep the main thing. Remember what your purpose is. Remember what you're trying to do. Don't steer away from that. Make everything that you're doing, decisions, centered around that one thing you're trying to do, that one purpose.
Yeah. I hard to segue out of that, my friend, because it's true, right? And I got a text from a mutual friend of ours who has a question that I want to share with you.
Okay.
But first, before I did, I've got a question for you that I want to ask, because this is interesting. As we're going through this conversation, oftentimes people tie purpose to the higher purpose of me. Why am I here? What is my purpose here? And also, though, there's the purpose in the work that we do, which is what we're talking about here, of how does that translate in the workplace. Now, I'm curious for you, Kraig, because you were fortunate that very, very early on in your life, I think you said you were like 8 or 9 years old, and you knew, with like laser-like precision, what you wanted to do in this life, like what you were made and built to do, which was to be a broadcaster. Oftentimes people struggle with what am I supposed to do, and then finding the purpose then. Like, I'm curious from your perspective, because you kind of alluded to it earlier. We were talking about, am I just doing another show? Am I just doing another, piece? But was that a challenge for you? Because like you knew what you wanted to do, but sometimes people maybe find that it's hollow when they get in there because they haven't figured out the purpose part of it. How was that for you? I'm just curious.
Well, so I knew I wanted to do that at age 8, and then I was in high school and I worked at a radio station. I was in college and I worked at a radio station, then the TV station, the affiliate there, but I had this mindset of a complete tunnel vision. I'm going to hit this market, then I'm going to go to a bigger market, then I'm going to go to a bigger market, and then hopefully I'm going to land who knows where. And again, you kind of set your self-worth on your jumps, if you will, and not necessarily some of the other things. What I found, I don't want to say that when I got to Golf Channel or was doing stuff at maybe a higher level or maybe greater awareness for an organization that you're a part of, that I felt hollow. people would say, hey, are you happy in your job? Absolutely. I loved my job. Don't get me wrong. I loved every bit of it. If somebody came to me tomorrow and said, hey, would you go back to the Golf Channel for a day, a month, or whatever, a couple of days, or do something, I'd certainly be open to doing something like that, because that's what my foundation kind of is. I don't know that I'd want to do it full time. Yeah. Happiness is a state of mind. Fulfillment is something else. Was I fulfilled every day? I just felt like, to me, what was missing was, all right, I like to make sure I'm engaging with people and giving back. Yeah. So I started doing, like you, these workshops. Mine are centered on presentation skills, personal storytelling, the link between presenting your best brand with the company's best brand and merging the two together to better sell the product and the organization. In other words, we buy people first. We don't buy companies first or products first. So how do you present yourself? So anyway, I was doing these workshops, and I've had some, I've been blessed with some great clients at Accenture, Transamerica, Gallagher, Diamond Resorts, on down the line. And I had a couple of people through this over the last 4 years say, you know what, man? I mean, I've seen you on TV. This is what you should be doing, because you're engaging with people. So I'll put name tags on people. I'm sure you probably do this too. And in the span of an 8-hour workshop, I know the people at the end of the day, and I feel like I've connected. If I can give some of what I've learned along the way about the importance of presenting the best you to others, so they have a confidence, because public speaking and presenting is such an intimidating thing, then I feel like I've truly helped somebody. I just questioned whether, in my purpose, was I truly, truly helping people by being on the air. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I started to question. If you're a news anchor and there's, crises and a lot of things going on in the world, then I think you're probably, you're probably helping people. Right. Anderson Cooper probably felt like he was helping people during COVID at the very beginning, with this show or that show, or, anybody on any network. That's what I want to be able to say that I do each day. I want to make a difference. And that, to me, is the greatest sign of purpose. Give people something that's of value. Give people something worth following. That's my take.
I think back to a time when, I was at Sprint. I was running the marketing communications program for the series sponsorship for NASCAR, and I was making more money than I'd ever made. I had the best title I'd ever had. I, was at the pinnacle, what I believed in the communications field and in our sport.
Yeah,
and that's how I valued myself. I valued it by the title on the card, the commas in the paycheck, the sway that I had with people in the industry. And then this funny thing happened with a merger, and my boss visits me with a manila envelope and says, hey, sorry, but with the merger, your position's been eliminated. And it completely rocked my world. I mean, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. And it just really brought to light that I really had my focus and priorities on the wrong things, and it wasn't, to your point of like, what am I bringing forth to others? It was really about what others saw of me and around me. It was the armor that I was putting on that made me seem bigger, better, maybe filling something in me, right? Coming up as a blue collar kid from Long Island, New York, but it was through that, to your point, of finding your voice and realizing what really matters. And more importantly, this kind of segues to the question that Paul just texted in. And Paul, thanks for joining us, man. You're awesome.
Cool. Awesome.
Up in Boston. His thought was this. He said, when did your professional purpose translate into personal equity? I think meaning in the personal equity, meaning the impact that you're having that transcends the career. And I think, Kraig, that's an interesting question that you maybe kind of segue to, unintentionally, by talking about what you've done from your work on air to what you're doing in these workshops now. Personally, I don't believe it has to be quite, where you have to make that much of a jump. I mean, I think you could have a situation where you have your job, and your job's your job. And if you're good at it and it's providing what you need, perhaps that is good. To your point early on, it doesn't mean you have to leave your job. Maybe you're finding purpose in other areas. If you're fortunate to blend them together, and we happen to know the backstory with Paul, and he's an amazing guy doing great work on the charity fronts and building a lot of bridges between fundraising and helping organizations and communities. But I know he still has a day job too, and other people do. We're like trying to find that bridge. How do you make that happen? How does that work?
Right. I you're talking about the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And I'll use this story that just happened yesterday. And I was talking to somebody, a buddy of mine that I'd worked with, who I greatly respect, and they're about to go through some transition in their organization. Big time transition in the organization. Now, how many millions of people could say they're going through that right now, right? And he's one of the leaders, and he's got upwards of 30 people that he oversees. And I said, look, you don't know what the next is. You don't know the future. You can't plan for the future. Now, this is going to sound selfish, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that you consider leaving the job that you're in. That's not my thing here at all. But what I would say is that it is never too early to start. I don't want to say updating your resume. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about updating your balance sheet. And the balance sheet is, all right, my strengths, my weaknesses, my goals, my dreams, because dreams are important, my ambitions, and if I want to get to here eventually, because I think that's going to be good for me or good for my family, what skill sets do I need to add, right? Yeah. How can I get there? What do I have to do? Do I have to take a class? Do I have to go to a seminar or a workshop? And so if we're trying to bridge from one thing to the next, then we can't be that same person. It's not going to work. We have to continue to spread our wings. We got to continue to take on new challenges. We got to continue to put ourselves in situations that are uncomfortable, which we've talked about, to grow and stretch. And I have another friend of mine who's a leader I'll just say she's the talent person at ESPN. Okay. She hires the people that come on the air, and she manages a lot of the people that are on the air. And they talk a lot about stretch opportunities or stretch roles, where they're going to put somebody on a show or a project, and they're going to stretch them to see how they can handle it. And then the best of the best might get, moved on or whatever. But stretch assignments are big. So what I'm telling you is, if you want to bridge from one part to the next, consider ways that you can stretch yourself, that you can advance your career. And this will sound like another shameless plug for what you and I do, but there's a lot of workshops out there. You don't have to go to mine. You don't have to go to Mike's. You don't have to go to the one Mike and I are putting together right now, getting excited about, that we're going to be doing for organizations and companies and people. But you got to find some way, because not every organization invests in their people. I have found that. They give you opportunity, but they're scared. There are companies out there that are scared to allow you to grow, to get better. The best leaders are the ones, I've been around them as well, that give you opportunity to shine and fail. Yeah. You need to be in a place that will allow you to grow. And you've got to find a way to do that if you want to go to the next level and find your purpose.
There's a great story I read about that, where it's probably more metaphoric than anything, of a CEO and a CFO sitting around a table, and they're looking at numbers and looking at training, and the CFO says, "My gosh, we're going to spend this much money on training these people. What if they all leave?" And the CEO looks at him and says, "You're right. But what if we don't train them and they stay?"
And they stay. I love it.
Right? And I love that perspective and what that story illustrates, because not only is it in the investment, because look, they're, and I get that question all the time when I talk with leaders about going in and helping their teams and team members build their brand.
Is that like a super famous quote that is attributed to somebody, or you just heard that? Because that thing,
no,
that's gold.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
No, I'd
Sorry,
love to say no, man, no. It is. I mean, it's fantastic, and I often use that, quite honestly, when
yeah,
I'm talking with leaders in organizations, and we're talking about the idea and the power of helping their teammates, their leaders, build their personal brands. Because in today's world, we know more than anything else, because of LinkedIn and social media, that we have a voice, and the voice that we have for the brands that we work with, the people we represent, the work that we do matters to the organization. It helps in
absolutely.
attracting employees. It helps with retaining employees. It helps with attracting new clients and retaining clients. There was a business connection between making your team members brands that are out there talking about the organization.
Yeah.
And I will get that question and say, Mike, I love the idea. It makes sense maybe for me as the leader, but I'm not so sure about the people on my team, because if they get too big and they become more of a brand, then they're probably going to leave. And I'm like,
That's true.
yeah, you know what? You're right. You're exactly right. Just as you could leave too if you had a better opportunity. The point is, what if they stay and they haven't figured out the voice and the brand, and they're not out there representing your company to help attract and retain new talent and new clients? What then? What have you missed? What's the opportunity lost there? So, that this kind of a segue to your point. I think the other thing too that I'd also encourage people to consider, and maybe this speaks back a little bit to Paul's question, is that sometimes it doesn't have to be either or. Like, you don't have to necessarily build a bridge out of where you are. It can be and. I've got a friend of mine who is a banker, and it does very well in banking. He's a very wealthy person, but that wasn't really what fired him up. And the reality is that he uses his banking role and world, the money he makes there, which then fuels the work he does in building orphanages in third world countries. Okay. So his purpose is out there trying to help others, but he's using his day job, his day gig, and what that wealth has afforded him and what he's accumulated to fuel what it is that his purpose is, and he's passionate about. So perhaps in some people's cases, they can look at how their current work environment is helping them fuel and accelerate the purpose outside of work and the personal side. So it could be in the relationships that you're making, the access that you have, you know what I'm saying? Like the ability to connect with others that's going to help on the other side. So while some may want to build a bridge to move on, I think there's the opportunity to actually leverage the seat that you're currently sitting in to fuel that purpose as well.
Yeah. So I know we got about 5 minutes or so left. And number one, I want to thank everybody that's on this with us, however big that number is, and we're trying to grow it. And we want, I think one of the things we can do as we move forward is add another piece to the puzzle. Maybe, have somebody come on with us that we can kind of interview and talk about things with.
We'll love it. We'll love it.
Well, I'll share this story. I was talking with a former CEO of a very global brand, and he said, I was like, what's going to happen when everybody comes back? If in fact they do come back at whatever level, when people are back in the office and we're not everything visual on this little camera that we're looking at right now, et cetera. And his line was, if I'm a CEO of any company, my biggest concern right now is my employees and their mental state and their well-being. I know it's great to grow your revenue and your business and think about shareholders and all that sort of stuff. But if I don't focus on my people, they're my greatest stock. And I thought that was, very powerful. And his line was that to find people today who will stay is very important, because a lot of them will be looking out the window going, what am I doing? What's my job? Is this company safe? Where are we going, et cetera? Yeah. And there's going to be some nervousness. And his line was, if you want to retain people, you're going to have to retrain people. And retraining doesn't mean you have to teach them what they already knew, but it's giving them new skill sets to go further. In other words, not everybody's going to be kept. Some that are furloughed aren't going to be back. The people around you are going to be smaller in numbers. So the people that are retained are going to need to be able to do more, handle more, be more successful. and take on more responsibility. So you got to give them new skill sets. You got to build them up. And to the point that you made about the brand, oh my gosh, the number of times that I've said this in my workshops is, and some CEOs might disagree with me, and that's fine. But everybody that walks into my workshop or yours or anybody else's, they're a brand. If they don't believe they're a brand when they walk in the door, they're a reputation. You talk about the reputation. They are a brand. And if they don't believe in that when they walk in the door, then they have cut their legs out from underneath them before we ever get started in coaching them up on any of the things that we do during the day to make them a better presenter or better with, some of their skill sets and leadership, et cetera, executive presence. Mm-hmm. The bigger your brand, the better the brand of the organization. And if the CEO or the head or your manager or your executive, your boss is nervous about you growing yourself or putting yourself out there as a thought leader or a blogger or whatever, sharing your experiences, then in my opinion, shame on them, because the bigger, better you with a little bit more awareness, a little bit more notoriety and greater opportunity to collaborate with others in the industry is better for the organization. And I always put it this way, Mike. We've all been to conferences and we've sat in the back with a lanyard on, and we represent an organization. Yeah. And there's always 4 people or 3 people that are up on the stage that are representing the industry. Okay, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So would you rather be in the back with the lanyard on, taking notes to go back to your organization, or would you rather be on the stage representing the industry as a thought leader, sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your, et cetera? That's where you want to be. And that's what every CEO should want to be, because most leaders that are really effective are trying to build their next. They're trying to build their succession plan. Who are the people that are going to move up? Who's going to take my job? And you shouldn't be afraid of that. You want to build bigger people. So that's my spin on that. Your final thought before we run through a few other things?
So I would say that, to your analogy on the back row seat with your name on the lanyards of being up on the dais, is that for some people that takes time. For a lot of people, you're going to start out being in that back row with just a name on your lanyard, and then over the course of your career, you're going to work your way up into that audience, up into the rows until you find yourself there. If that's something you choose to pursue, I think that gets back to one of the earlier comments about being uncomfortable, stretching, growing, finding your voice and your purpose. I just also encourage people just to be patient, yet still be curious and explore. If you're drawn to something, if something speaks to you inside in your heart of hearts, well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason. So take some time to be still and explore that a little bit more. Be curious. Ask yourself why that is, and then maybe see, how can I apply that to the work I'm doing in the office every day? How can I one little step every day? Like I did a post last week, just saying, stop with the 100% effort. Stop giving 100%. Just give me 1% daily improvement. 1% every day. Right? So what is that little thing inside you that's speaking that is authentically you, that you can put into play 1% every day? And I guarantee if you stay consistent with that and you're intentional, that over time, you're going to find that's part of your purpose. And you're going to see these breadcrumbs. Like I mentioned earlier on in my career, I look back and I see these breadcrumbs of experiences and the skills that I learned and the lessons that I learned and the scars that I have, that we all have, all led me to where I know, Kraig, where you are today. So be patient, stay curious, listen to yourself, 1% daily improvement.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, I like it. I like the 1% thing. I read your post. I thought it was terrific. I'll share something as well. And I mentioned it earlier. And that is my podcast, Tracks to Success. A new episode every Monday. We're in season 1, just got 4 left. And I'll be announcing my Monday guest coming up tomorrow. So you see the 4 that are still coming. I got a big-time football coach, big announcer, one of the best authors, and one of the best I know in leadership. Mike Mooney was one of my guests earlier this year. So you can find it, download it, subscribe it, Apple Podcast, iTunes, Spotify. You see them all. That's where you'll find it, and also on my YouTube channel as well. So I hope you'll give that a listen. And I'm really excited about what's taking place with season 2, man. It's I got some,
congratulations.
yes, it is really cool. Some people that have reached out to me. Hey, can I be on your podcast? Hey, this guy should be on your podcast. This woman should be on your podcast. I got a running list over here that's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that.
Man.
All right, here's the topic for the next time we get together, which is going to be in 2 weeks, right? Because you've got a big thing next week. So we'll be joining everybody in a couple of Thursdays from now. And it's called Finding Your Voice. Today we talked about purpose. Now, Mike and I have been pretty big and with companies talking about communication and messaging. And so this is the topic, building your reputation, right in Mike's wheelhouse, reputation through your message. And, that's not just public speaking. That's a lot of different things. Right. So I think that you probably love that topic. So I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about it. I hope the people who are watching and tuning in, thank you for doing so. We're excited. Please spread the word. This is a conversation that you're enjoying and you're getting some nuggets out of. Let us know. Please send questions, but also spread this through your network as well. We're looking to again make impact, and it starts with conversations. It starts with us coming together. Kraig, I love the idea of having a third voice in here as well to bring some other perspective too. I think that's a great evolution in this. But I think what this speaks to, first and foremost, my friend, is that we put the ball in play. We're creating something that we said, let's see what happens. And I'm glad to be riding along with you. Proud of you on your podcast and how that's continued to evolve, and grateful to have been a small voice amongst giants, man.
All right. So if you want to learn more, folks, here's a couple of ways. Mike, share a little bit about your website, and then we'll head out of here.
Absolutely. So if you go to MikeMooney.com, you can learn more about the work that I'm doing in the areas of reputation building and protection, shifting people's mindsets to be more proactive, and how we're intentionally, deliberately building one of our greatest assets in today's world, which is our reputations. You can check out my book there as well, Reputation Shift. If you do get it from my site, I can personalize it. If you buy it from me through Amazon, I can personalize it and sign it. So shameless plugs there, but that's what I have to offer you this morning. You can catch me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook as well.
All right, Mike, you still haven't sent me that autographed copy of your book. I'm kind of upset. Kannadvisory.com is my website. You'll learn about workshops, webinars, keynotes, and the various consulting opportunities that I do one-on-one with people and also with groups as well. Organizations just brought on a great new advisor to my team, about to bring on a couple of more, and I'm really excited about that. If you go to kannadvisory.com, you will see and find out what the green shoe is all about and how we can become the green shoe. If you go to my workshop, you'll know a lot more about that and its meaning. So if you want to learn more, kannadvisory.com, MikeMooney.com, and that puts a wrap on another edition of Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak. Mike and I, as we said, put this together just to be relaxed, to give people an opportunity to share some questions, and we can talk back and forth. Just a small part of the Thursday morning, and I hope everybody's enjoyed that. Brand new every week, brand being the operative word, inspiring career growth opportunities and conversations. That's what we're doing. So, Mike, you have a great rest of your week and a good weekend. I know we'll talk sooner rather than later. And everybody out there, thanks so much as well, right?
Thank you, Kraig. Appreciate you, brother, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you in a little while, and we'll get another episode rolling. This is great. Thanks, bud.
Have a great one, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care, and we will talk again soon.